Boom, familia. This is Kevin Orosz. This is the Revolution podcast. I'm joined by my dear brother, Mr. Brandon Bozarth. And we're coming to you live right now from Ubud, Bali, Indonesia. And I just want to invite like a deep breath that you can join us in. So just closing the eyes, aligning the spine, just feeling the gravity of the earth, feeling the connection up to the stars. I'm just going to take one huge inhale. That feels good.
You know what's funny? The name of the podcast was when I first got into coaching and I thought, okay, I want to create a group and like start putting out content. The name of the group was Revolution. Revolution.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because mine's our evolution.
Nice.
Revolution. So,
nice.
Wow. We're
Yeah,
clearly meant to be here
play.
doing this.
Yeah.
So, quick backstory on Brandon. I found out about you online along with Nathaniel Solis, and I was like, these guys are dope. And then tons of people would DM me and be like, you need to meet Brandon because you guys are so similar. And I was like, okay, universe, stop teasing me. And then I think, the first time we met was at Daniel Raphael. Shout out, we're in his temple right now. There's your shout out that was promised. At his event, Wizard Weekend, where you were there facilitating, your beloved was chefing. And I think now we've spiraled into Bali together and we're just doing the thing. Quick context for this. This is going to be a pretty deep one, fam. So strap in, have your journals ready, put up your crystal grid. We're going to talk about the 13 first off, like the geometry of 13 and how various councils throughout history have had 12 members plus 13, which is spirit or like the avatar or things like that. Also the 13 moon calendar, which the ancient Chinese used, the I Ching is based on, the Mayans used in their calendar. And just the vibration of 13 is so powerful. And we were just riffing about, I was born on the 13th of September and your Mayan dream spell is number 13. Wow.
Man, it's crazy because I didn't really have a lot of synchronicity with the 13 until maybe the last 2 months. And I guess, to start with the number 13, 13 as an essence is transformation. It represents transformation. And a deeper understanding that I've received from the 13 and just through my experience is that the purpose of physical reality is transformation. It's to forget who we are so we can remember from a new point of view, thus lending new information to all that creates expansion in the universe. And so 13 is quite literally a description of the process of physical reality. And for people to know that and go, oh, that's why we're here. We're here to transform all this dark into light. To a lot of people, they're afraid of that. Like, oh, if you knew your purpose here was to transform into the highest aspect of yourself, well, then you'd start asking questions, right? And so it's been called unlucky. It's been called, they don't put a 13th floor on buildings because it's all this like superstition.
Friday the 13th, there's all this like distortion around it.
Right? It's like the lesson. It's like whatever media says is wrong is probably right.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Yeah. So same thing with the number 13.
So let's rewind a little bit in your journey with the number 13 and like the geometry it holds. Like when's the first time you can remember that you like made contact with it?
Well, so there was a big catalyst in December. I think I might have told you about this. So throughout my life I've had these like series of like seedling awakenings where it's like I felt completely different, but the degree of change wasn't nearly as palpable as in just this last December. So I actually ended a relationship that was probably about 6 months beyond where I should
have. Expiration date.
Right, expiration date, right. And literally a week later was invited to a ceremony with Sananda and Shakina in San Diego. And there was a 7-month waiting list and I wasn't on that waiting list. So people have been trying to get into that for 7 months. Like, oh, can you fit one more? And they've been, no, you can't. So I knew that from the start. Oh, I'm not partaking in this ceremony. So I just continued to act on my excitement and follow synchronicity. One of those was go to their temple and do a meditation for the solstice. It was winter solstice. We're meditating. Had a great meditation. Left, and on my way out, as I'm going to the door to like open the door, I have this feeling. Oh, I should talk to Sananda. He was one of the facilitators. Total legend. And I feel him, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go over. I didn't know why. I just went over and I just looked at him, and I kind of like awkwardly was like, hey. And she kind of like was holding the space, you know? And he's just looking at me, and he's like, you should come sit with us in ceremony tomorrow. And I was blown away. I'm like, I thought it was full. And he goes like, with no hesitation, he's like, if it was full, I wouldn't have invited you. Okay, I'm there. He goes, the only requirement is that you fast today. Like, are you fasted? My instruction from Spirit that morning was to fast. So I was already fasted. So I'm already fasted. He goes, all right, great, see you tomorrow. So I can talk about that ceremony for like 20 minutes. So the long story short about that is I went through what I later learned were the 7 aspects of myself. And I thought everyone was having this experience. For me, it was the most intense experience of my life. It was like 7 deaths. And that last experience, and they say, right, to experience more life, experience more death. And so it was like death, death, death. And at that last level, I experienced something that I later learned from Sananda, because I didn't know this, but he could see what I was seeing the entire time. Wow. And he didn't drink any of the ambrosia. He was just fully there. And I could see him through my mask, and I was hoping it was real for like this comfort idea, because what I was going through felt so intense. So that 7th level felt like, he later told me it was the diamond heart of Christ. And he actually painted.
Which is Sananda in Sanskrit.
Yeah, it is. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, chills. So when I reached that, it felt like I was at the bottom, at the base of like 1,000 Mount Everest. It was the most massive, powerful energy I've ever felt in my life. There was a tone and a frequency to it that was so high. It was like, if you like poked me, I felt like I just shattered into like trillions of pieces. I was like holding so much. And it was hot. I felt like I was maybe at 120 degree temperature. I was sweating. I actually had thoughts that maybe I'm gonna get permanent brain damage.
Because like I'm frying.
So hot, I'm frying my biology, right? So I'm held in this image, and it's beautiful, and it's this silvery white light with all these beautiful gems and geometry that's kind of molding and forming. And as soon as it forms, a blotchy white light behind it started to come in, and the white light was hot. It was like, I've been to Jamaica, and that was probably the hottest I've ever been. It felt like 10 times that. Jeez. Like on the beach, and on like the surface of the sun, the light was like, it was so uncomfortable. I'm just boiling in it. I'm like, I'm dying. I'm like, my whole body's on fire. Like, this must be what it's like to burn alive, you know? I'm just in it, and it goes all white. And in that moment, every other preceding level, when I hit that white zone, I'd go to the next. I'd leave it. And this time I didn't leave it. I'm just holding in it. And I'm just, at this point, just kind of yelling, just like, I'm just like in a lot of discomfort. And I could see Sananda through my mask, and he's walking over, and I'm hoping it's real. And he comes over and he puts his hand on top of my head, and he does this spiral move like this, and then lifts up, and all that light goes out of my crown, and I just fall back, and I'm 90% sober, 90% back, and my journey's done, and everyone else is in their thing, and I'm kind of like, what just happened? Whoa. And I just cried for the next 5 or 6 hours, because I was in such a state of awe with it. I couldn't even talk about it for the next 2 weeks without crying. It was just something that really wasn't of this world. I felt like it went from belief to knowing of source of all that is. And one of the most profound moments was when I looked at that light, and I said, and I acknowledged it for being the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I remember saying, everything else that I've seen that I thought was beautiful is laughable in comparison to this. And actually laughing, like, I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was a good time. Oh my God, like, I've seen nothing yet. And as soon as I acknowledged it, it said, I'm you. So when I said that this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, it said, well, that's you. I just something shattered in me, you know? And I said, I know, I am all things, I'm all people, I'm all living beings. And so from that point, that's when everything that's when the 13 came in to tie it all in. That's when I'd have these dreams, like I'd wake up and just start writing, and like I had these dreams of like these charts, like in laminated paper with these hands. No, I can't see the face, and they're just showing me. I made a post on my Instagram about this called the 6 Principles of a Holy Relationship, and saying this is where it starts, this is how you can always bring it back to love, and I'd wake up and maybe retain like 20 or 30% of it. I'd come out, I'd write it, and then it'd come through. So the 13 has been an accumulation from December until a month and a half ago in Galway, where it all came through as I was walking through town one day. I just knew. I just had this knowing of, okay, it's ready. And I wrote down each principle. And when each principle came through, the understanding I came to was, okay, I see these changing. I see them being dynamic. I see them growing in depth and perspective, but I can't see a 14th step. And for me, that landed so in such a level of knowing that I said, this feels like it wants to be shared more than I want to share it, because this is an equation of remembrance. That's what I call it, an equation of remembrance. It's like the 13 steps for those that are addicted to fear, not substance. And it's not 12 because they're obviously missing one, right? So that it's just been an accumulation of what I've received since then that's been very different than previous to that experience.
Wow. It's like what a transmission. I felt like I was in the space with you and could feel in my body like the level of surrender. And like the word coming in was like transfiguration. Like being like, because there's like transmutation. I know in the gene keys it's like transmutation, which is like alchemizing matter and energy, but then transfiguration is becoming it. Like you're not just like moving energy anymore, you're actually it. And it's like you've been transfigured. And this of course is captured in the Christ mythos when he has the transfiguration and like is raised to heaven / a higher dimension and then is returned to earth with that energy. And wow. So and so I want to riff about a few things about the 13 that have been important in my life as well, because like I mentioned, I was born on the 13th. I always like felt weird when my birthday was on the Friday the 13th, because people would be like, oh, it's so unlucky and all this stuff, and I felt awesome. I was like, this is dope. And 13 in numerology condenses to 4, which 4 is like, 4 elements, 4 seasons, 4 pillars. It's a very powerful earth vibration of ordering and structuring reality. Also, as I mentioned earlier, most councils, so if you had a council ruling a civilization, from Atlantis, from Egypt, to the Maya, to the ancient Chinese, Han Dynasty, like there were 12 members of the council. This is in Native American traditions too. And the 13th seat was kept for spirit or source. And so there's a way that the 13 configuration allows the spirit mic, 12 tribes of Israel. There's so many fractals of this, and the 13th is one that's been removed from his story. His story. Because the distortions that have been laid over have removed the 13 because of the 13 actually has the feminine vibration, which invites in the cyclical, but it still condenses to 4, which is traditionally considered a masculine vibration. So this is like, and then of course the most powerful maybe is the 13 moon calendar, which the Mayan and the Chinese used, and the Gregorian calendar being a distortion because it pops off that 13th, goes into 12 and puts you in like inorganic time.
Exactly.
Instead of organic.
And then you also have the 1 and the 3. So those are separate entities. You have 1 just being the 1, being spirit, being all that is, and then you have the 3 being Trinity, being perfect balance. And then putting those together, it's about bringing into balance the 1 in physical reality, the 4. So it just all...
It has the whole like vibration in there.
And that's why it's like now when you think of transformation, what I've learned is this. The more that I've integrated myself, the more that I've looked at aspects of myself that I've disowned and said, okay, this, I don't want to look at this. That can't be me. Oh, that thing outside of me, oh, I can't accept that. Oh, what they're doing, oh, that's bad or wrong. All of those things that would create any form of separation, the more that I've looked at those and integrated them, the more I've seen the natural integration of all things. And all that is, oh, I see how that is a fractal and a reflection of that. And it's also in the geometry. It's also in the psychology. It's also in the spirituality. It's also in the physics. It's also in our atoms. It's also in the solar system. You just start seeing all that is within all that is. And so like you look at a blade of grass and you're like, oh, I see the principle of the only constant is change. I see how the grass is representing that. I could see it there and I can see it there. And so it's almost like, think about any sort of significant awakening that you've had where you've seen the world as a more connected, holistic place. You can't not then come from a less holistic idea. You can't say, oh, I'm going to be a business consultant, but now I know so much about inner child work, my shadow. I can't not bring that to you because I know they're directly connected. You can't
unsee that once you've been there.
And you see the interconnection and you realize, well, I'd be doing you a disservice by just trying to focus on what you think you want versus what you need. And so with the 13, it's like traditionally to get the interconnectedness aspects, the interconnected aspects that are all relevant to the transformational process, to get those in one place, typically you'd go to a library and you'd have to find like 6 different sections and then 6 or 7 different books to be like, oh, here's the geometry of transformation. Here's the psychology. Here's the science. Here's the spirituality. Oh, these are all in different sections. For the 13, it's all one process. There's no separation in that way.
Yeah, this is so powerful. And this is captured in the Hermetic principles in the Book of Thoth and like a lot of these alchemical traditions where, you know, as within, so without, as above, so below. Mm-hmm. These were ancient axioms that capture now what science is understanding with the Fibonacci sequence and the phi ratio, that all organic matter has the same template. Mm-hmm. And at every level of the fractal, the whole fractal is contained within it. And there's a word, holon, which is a unit of the hologram. So you can perceive a holon, like in a blade of grass. You can perceive a holon in this conversation. You can perceive it in a feeling, and it recapitulates the totality. So like, I love that. That's one of the core principles that actually, for me, creates a lot of freedom in life. Because if you can't perceive the totality, you can perceive like constraint or lack. Whereas if you're aware of the totality, no matter how like kind of crunchy things get, you can see through it into the fractal, and then you're like opened back up into freedom and love. And you're just like, oh, that's why I had to go through that inner child struggle or the shadow, or that's why I had to go through a breakup or an ending of a business, or, you know, something like that. And that provides a lot of perspective. And so I want to pivot here. Like, I feel like we could riff so hard, but my mind always goes here, which is the hero's journey. Just one of the best master maps for humanity. And I'm just curious for you, because I actually don't know, and we're having the conversation here. For you, like, can you describe to us and me right now, like, what your, like, think about Luke before he met Obi-Wan. Like, or Harry. Wow. So literally two birds just like did this like flapping spiral together right there. That just happened live. So yeah, Luke before he met Obi-Wan, Harry before he met Hagrid and realized he's a wizard. Like, what is that, Brandon, before you heard the call to adventure?
Oh man, I mean,
it's microdose us.
Yeah, so it's funny because this version of me has been sprinkled throughout as long as I can remember, just in different forms that aren't conscious, right? But that's part of me realizing the interconnectedness of going, oh, this has always been me. I see I've always been this version of me. It's just been very different. But I mean, like, high school, I was like conspiracy theorist boy. I was like, I started a club called the Broth Reaches, which is Gaelic for brotherhood. And I'm like, let's get together, watch conspiracy theories, and figure out how we're gonna like whistleblow and like overthrow the, you know.
It's a great part of the journey.
Yeah, that was my freshman year in high school, and I just started like questioning everything, school, you know, the whole stereotype of the American dream, all these sort of ideas. So I'm like, there's got to be more. And I was like, that was like my initiation into the search. Conspiracy was. And at first, it just created a lot of anger, which I realized later was powerlessness, feeling like I can't do anything about it. They're more powerful than me, which is actually the built-in technology of conspiracy theory, which I've learned now. Conspiracy theory as a frequency is, we want you to believe we have more power than we actually do, because we actually feel powerless. So we only get power by you believing we have power. Right. Because we're actually really afraid.
This is how the one manipulates the 99.
Exactly. And so I didn't know that at the time, so I'm getting like angry and feeling powerless. I remember like seeing people jump out of the 9/11 building to their death, and feeling so angry knowing that I believe that was an inside job. And at the time, being a freshman, I'm like, what do I do about this? And I'm like telling my dad, I'm like, I'm gonna move to Iraq. It's more what I say. It's like it's better than being in the U.S. It's less corrupt than the U.S. I was like, super.
How did your dad respond to that?
He's like, go. Why don't you go? You're not a patriot. Like, we went at it a little bit. But we have such a great relationship. Anyway, everything else was pretty normal. I ended up going to Philadelphia after high school and college. Really hated school, honestly. Dropped out of school, joined network marketing. Actually, that was like my way out. It was like I felt so constrained and had no passion after sports. I broke my collarbone twice in my senior year in football, and I was going to go play college. So all that was like, thrown away. And then I was in college, no direction. I would just work out. That was like my outlet. So all I was doing is gym, and then depressed in school. And then eventually someone came by, hey, this network marketing thing, you can create your own amount of income, work for yourself, I didn't even care about what it was, how much it cost. I just quit everything and did it. I dropped out of school. I broke up with my girlfriend. I left my job, quit my job, and I just went all in. That ended up working pretty well. That's how I got my first car, actually. And I did that for like 3 years. It took me to the East Coast, and I loved it because my main role was inspiration. And I realized I did that all my life through sports. Like, I was always the guy at halftime that was like rallying everyone up, And so I'm on the East Coast, and what was interesting is I had a meditation practice. I was reading the books, and I was probably at this time when I moved, maybe 23, maybe 24 actually. And I'm reading all the books. I'm like super into Deepak Chopra. I'm super into all these Bashar, all these different resources, but none of it was embodied. So I had so much intellectual
like
knowledge.
Top heavy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah. I was like a conduit of information, but I was like an empty expression of embodiment. I had nothing to embody. So I'd just party a lot, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, smoke, drink, all that. I'd sleep around with basically anyone, and it was just the same thing to fill that hole of what I didn't know was how I didn't have the tools to navigate what I was feeling. And so it was through partying, it was through girls, it was through validation, it was through the gym. I was doing steroids at the time, so you could see the stretch marks. Wow. I don't know if you guys can see that on here. Wow. I mean, I was like 210 pounds. I'm like 168 right now. Wow. I was like 210, benching like, I don't know, 350 pounds. I mean, I was like huge. And so that was me before, you know? And I was, imagine. I know, right? I even at one point in high school, I had anger problems. My parents actually came to me and they were like, we might need to take you to anger management. It's like punching holes in walls and all this stuff. So anyway, all that came to a peak in the East Coast when I was actually doing really well in network marketing. I was the #1 earner in the company, which sounds way cooler than it was because it was a small ass company, sure. But it was great. You know, it was enough money for me to travel and do my thing. And so it boiled to a peak where I was doing steroids, I was sleeping around, which I just kept feeling every time I'd have sex, I'd just get deeper in the hole, deeper in the hole, deeper in the hole. And then if I didn't know what to do, and then we'd just go out and party and do it all again next week, you know? Right. So I got to a place where I didn't have to actually wait for the drama or trauma to occur from that pattern. I just came to a place where I stopped and I was like, what would happen? It just came to, I remember this like it was yesterday. I was sitting on the couch and I said, what would happen if this continued for another year? And I just thought about who would I be? What would I feel like? I remember trying to tune into that feeling of a year from now if nothing changed. I said, I wouldn't want to be alive. If nothing changed a year from now, no, I didn't sign up for that. And that was it. It was that moment. Everything changed. I went celibate for 4 months. I stopped eating meat. I went full vegan. I meditated twice a day, and I quit network marketing. And I had no savings, no plan B. I had no idea what I was going to do. Wow. I had all these bills living on the East Coast. I had this Mercedes that I got from the company that I now need to pay for, which was like $800 a month just for that. And I had nothing. I literally had nothing. And like months go by, my car gets repossessed. And literally the more that was taken from me, the more liberated I felt. I was like, right. I'm still good. I'm still here. Like, I don't need that. And that was like the first myth being busted, the myth of need. I need something to be happy. I need something in a certain way. Right. I need this condition to be this certain way in order. Versus my state of being actually creates my circumstances. My circumstances don't create my state of being. Yes. And so I can choose that unconditionally. Because that's simply my power of choice. That's my free will. And why do I do it? Because it feels good. I don't need any other reason. And so I started doing that. Like, they'd take my car and I'd say, whoa, what would happen if I celebrated that and told people how okay I am with that? So I'd make videos on Facebook about what was happening. And I'd just share my process openly and like positively. And people started like coming to me like, oh, I'm challenged with this. Can we get on a call? So I started getting on calls with people on Facebook that I never met, different parts of the world. I didn't really know what a coach was. I knew like Tony Robbins, but I wasn't like, I'm not an authority. My car's being repossessed. You know, I'm just like happy. So I'd just get on these calls, and I didn't know at the time, but they were full-blown channeling coaching sessions where I would get on, and honestly, my ignorance was the gift because I didn't have any expectation. Yeah, I had no expectation. I just said, I'm just going to do my best. And it would just flow through, and we'd both have transformation, and then they'd want to come back, and then more people would come, and next thing you know, I'm doing like 3, 4, 5 calls a week. And I'm just like, what is going on? And ultimately I put out a newsletter that ended up landing in the inbox of a woman moments before she was going to kill herself. And this is what called me into it, because it was so obvious. I call it the science of the obvious sometimes. Like, you're so in your passion and all this stuff is coming up and you're wondering like, what's my next step? And it's like, what's here right now? Like, what's the most exciting thing in your life? That's it. Just go into that. Right. So I wasn't really fully answering that call. I wasn't considering myself a coach. I wasn't like, how can I do this full time? I was just kind of drifting in it until I put out that newsletter, and this woman was in Australia sitting in her car looking at the beach, had a handful of sleeping pills and was contemplating taking them and going in the ocean and going to sleep. And she's sitting there, and she's a medium, so spirit, she was talking to her guides, and her guide said, turn on the radio. So she turned on the radio, and a song played, and the song said word for word, first words were, you should stay a little bit longer.
Wow.
And
Chills.
yeah, and so she did, and she's crying. I'm gonna stay, I don't want to stay, it's so much easier to go, I don't want to stay, I want to go. Crying. Boom, and the next moment gets my email. My email was entitled, I'm excited to die, which was my marketing days of getting someone to read my newsletter, which was a catchy way of me saying, yes, when we die, we leave behind the pain, the guilt, the shame, but we don't have to die to experience what the other side can be like now. So here's some things you can do to feel better. And she responded, and it was my first response from a newsletter. I thought she was going to opt out, honestly. Response to a newsletter, oh, must be my first opt-out, you know? I'm like opening it up, and she's like, hey, I want you to coach me. This helped me so much. Coach you? I'm like, for what? I've coached basketball, you know, like, she's a 65-year-old woman, or, you know, in her 60s. I'm like, what kind of coaching does she want? So I just said, let's get on a call, see if I can support you. And I get on, and I didn't know her condition at the time, where she was at emotionally. And so we dove in, and I just gave her what I thought would support her, and it really supported her. And she says, how much do you charge? And I made up a number just on the spot, and she became my first client. And we would meet every 2 or 3 days sometimes.
Wow.
Like 3 times a week we would get on, because this is someone who was suicidal. And I don't have any suicide training or any of that, right? But again, it's like the beginner's mind idea. I just stepped aside enough to let through what she actually needed. Right. That was just so happened to be my perspective and excitement to do so. So 4 months later, we both had such a radical transformation that I just decided, okay, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm here to do.
Wow, bro. I'm just like, that's so wild. And for anyone listening, watching to this, like, it's such an obvious step to follow your highest excitement. It's a cliche, follow your bliss, you know, Joseph Campbell, but the way you said that is so powerful. I want to harvest 3 pearls that I was tracking. The first one is that, like, and this is something that comes up for me all the time in my coaching and just my own life when I get stuck, you know, whatever that means. How can I use what's right in front of me with enthusiasm to leverage into the next step? Because the mind wants to, like, lay out the whole battle plan. Right. But, you know, like MLK, one of my favorite quotes, is like, you don't need to see the entire staircase. You just need to take a single step. And so that's a huge pearl right there. Number 2 is that moment where you're like, what would happen if I continued this way for a year? And this is a beautiful exercise, and, like, quick commercial break for anyone here. Like, can you right now, something that you are experiencing that's a hardship or a block, an obstacle, can you extend it out a year in the future and feel what that feels like? And that could be the impetus. Like you said, you avoided massive trauma or drama by just feeling what that actually felt like.
Right. Let me just,
it's huge.
Secondary commercial break. With that idea, why that works is because all human behavior is governed by the same mechanism, and it's, we will always move away from what we believe to be painful and move towards what we believe to be in our best interest. And so, and you could use pain, you could substitute painful for not in our best interest. Yeah. And so in that moment, if you notice a behavior that you're choosing, but you aren't letting it go, it's because of, 2 reasons that are essentially the same reason. Number 1, it's not painful enough to let it go, meaning you actually have a belief that if I let it go, it's going to be more painful to let go of this painful thing. It's going to be more scary to actually let go of my self-sabotage, right? Or, and what that means is you just have a belief that's unconscious about that thing that you haven't found yet, and it's attached to the wrong end of that spectrum. And so for me, it was, if I didn't extend it out a year, everything was okay, right? Everything was okay. So in that moment, I didn't have enough motivation to make a new choice. Right. And so that's something that you can do to go, you know what? If it's not painful enough right now, you won't let it go. So sometimes to take a bird's eye view and say, well, what would happen to me, my relationships, all of this, if I did continue this pattern? Now I see the effect that it's happening. Do I prefer that or not? It can be very helpful.
Yeah, it's like a quick timeline hop into your future, and you can sample what that's actually like and, like, pull it into your present, and you don't have to wait. Maybe, like, past generations, I feel like, had to experience the deep trauma of writing bad habits for, like, decades Instead of now, it's like quantum leaps are available.
Yeah.
Quantum evolution and perspective is available because you can extrapolate out into the future. And that's actually the beauty of the intellect. It can trap you with analysis. It can also free you if you use it skillfully. So that's an incredible technique and simple thing. The third thing I wanted to harvest from here was the coaching model, right? This comes up so much for me. Like, I still to this day.
One of your hairs right here. I'm just gonna keep that for later.
That's good. Yeah, now you have my essence. I still to this day haven't really posted a lot on all my channels, even though I'm creating content all the time about coaching, because the word itself, like, I consider myself an epic coach, and then people tell me that, but the word is so interesting. And Alex Fairman, I believe you know, he has an amazing phrase. I first saw it from him, that coaches evolve the species. And so whatever coaching is, or consulting, or being, you know, this catalyst for people to transform, heal, awaken, unlock, you know, step into success and mastery and like sex, money, and, you know, relationships and all these things. What it actually is like what you're saying. Like, you didn't even know what you were doing. You were just channeling from Mugen Mushin, which is beginner's mind. That's why, like, if you try something for the first time, you'll hit a bullseye, and the expert's like, what? And we call it beginner's luck. It's because you don't know enough to fuck up by over-analyzing.
Right.
And so in those situations, those people probably could hear exactly what they needed to hear, because you had no preconceptions about this is what they need, let me leverage, let me do this, here's a strategy.
Right.
And so for anyone out there, I know there's a ton of people I talk to, and I'm sure you encounter them all the time too, that want to start on this path. And they're like, I don't know how. I don't know how. How do I coach? I want freedom and time, money, location, independence. How?
Yeah. Cool. Let me wrap on this a little bit. This is good. I love this so much, because when I realized that when I made a separation between me being myself and then me being a coach, that's when there was resistance. Because there really is no separate, and this is only true for you if coaching is truly your highest excitement for the sake of coaching itself, not for the money, not so you can travel. So many people go, man, I want to do this so I can blank. Right in that moment, you're setting up an expectation, you're setting up an insistence, and insistence equals resistance. The moment, I'm doing this because of that, boom, you're slowing down synchronicity, you're slowing all of it down. So if the process of coaching for you, which will have to look different than anyone else, is for its own sake your highest excitement, meaning you can't imagine doing anything else, then as long as you do it in that way for you, that is the most exciting for you, you will naturally be of the right frequency that people are excited to receive, right? Because there's no such thing as a one-sided coin. Think about imagining a one-sided coin. How do you can't even imagine that.
It's a brain breaker.
If you have the side that says, I'm excited to give, that is sort of saying there are people excited to receive, but only if you're in that vibration, not if you're putting a coach hat on and doing it the way you think you should do it. Which by extension, what you're doing is you're actually showing clients that they can't be themselves. That's what you're showing them. You're saying, I don't believe I can be myself. So I'm going to put this coach hat on, do what I think I need to do in order to get you a certain result. Well, hey, look, the purpose of being a coach isn't to get someone a result. And that's probably the highest understanding of a coach, because some people come to you and they need you to validate their sickness. And actually, in the scheme of their life, that will benefit them long term. It can. Because if they're actually not ready to heal, but they need someone like you, who's an amazing coach, an amazing healer, to come to them, give the healed vibration, you do your best, you're responsible for your 50%, you give them everything they need, but they can't take it, that could be enough for them to go, fuck, I need to go even deeper. I need something even more grandiose. Let me continue my journey deeper into the dark, deeper into the dark, deeper into the dark, so I can snap back that much further into the light. And it's that journey in which they develop all their gifts, all the appreciation for life, and you could rob them of that if you put expectation on them. So that's the beauty about it, is your only job is to offer the healed vibration. That's it. Which is an automatic byproduct of you being in your passion and being yourself. That's why don't try and be a coach. Be yourself as fully as you can. If it excites you to support people in that certain way, use a word that works. Coach is a word that works if it resonates with you, but you can make up a word. And when you start making it up and making it feel like it's you, that's your niche. You don't need to think, how do I create a niche? You can be yourself as fully as you can, and people go, there's something about him, he stands out. Because a lot of people aren't completely being themselves in that way.
Right. Some fire codes here, y'all, because in that riff, you just answered like some of the top questions that people answer or ask to be answered about this industry, if you want to call it that.
They ask that because it's too hard to accept something that's simple.
Right.
Every master...
Mind loves complexity.
Yeah, every master knows the nature of the universe is simple, but it's richly complex, but it's not complicated.
Right.
Complex in perspective, simple in nature. So why would the universe build us with something that is incomplete? If us being our full selves, meaning in our highest excitement, in our passion, or as the Christ shows as a heart lit on fire, what does that mean? The passion of the Christ. What is that? That's a direct connection with Source. That's you living in concert with the higher mind, letting synchronicity guide you. In that state, that is a complete idea. Right. That's like the forest, a self-sustained forest. That's actually you being the part you're designed to be. And so wouldn't it make sense that the universe goes, oh, he's completely being himself, so let me completely show him the complete support that he needs in all ways. Yes. But because we can't see that, we go, no, I think I have to do way more. I got to have a plan. I got to have this. I got to have that.
I got to strategize. I got to leverage out of scarcity or fear because I may not get the fullness of my expression and being. So let me be clever about it.
Exactly.
And this is the trap of the mind. I was reading a book the other night, and it was like intelligence and the intellect are the greatest gift from God, but also the greatest enemy to enlightenment, because it can artificially, through cleverness, block you from being yourself, which is such a paradox, but because at the same time, as you're saying, by truly being yourself, surfing synchronicity, normalizing miracles, just expressing the healed vibration, the whole vibration, you automatically are placed at the center of the universe. And the ancients call this axis mundi. And this is when you see someone and you feel someone, and I'm feeling it in my body right now, feeling the shivers, like in their full expression, in their truth, riffing, like we're riffing right now. And we're just having a conversation. The conversation before this video was arguably just as woke or even woker. You know, this is a normal day in Ubud. But when you own that vibration, the universe has to match you with it because it's natural law. There's no strategic mental mode that can do that. Because the very definition of the strategy is that let me control reality to fit my expectation. Meanwhile, universe is like, I got all the stuff right here for you. Can you surrender? Can you go to beginner's mind? You know?
Right. Because what I learned is it's like a lot of people with the idea of law of attraction, The Secret kind of messed a lot of people up in the sense of it implies that you have to learn how to attract. And it's like, okay, attract.
It's like teaching a magnet how to attract.
It's like you think there has to be like an effort. The fact is, and this is the vision that I got, was imagine yourself having your white light here in your heart. And that white light is your unique stamp of creation. And that's the only frequency of the one that is as it is. And it's yours. And it's your unique blueprint. Everything around that then is the light that reflects through and is filtered through different belief systems, which show up as colors. We call that aura. So you got like a red here and a purple there. Some are transparent and they let some of that light through because we do need beliefs. Beliefs are it's just how we navigate physical reality. So you can have a really hard, dense belief that is rigid and the light doesn't pass through, or you can allow them to be transparent and flexible and malleable and the light gets to pass through. That core frequency is always resonating. You can't, it's just an implied knowing of energy that they constantly radiate energy because that's just that's their nature. So we have a constant radiation of ourselves being projected into the universe, our signature frequency, that is always pulling towards us things that are of like frequency. And that's why when you go, oh, follow your excitement, what does that actually mean? It means that the thing that you're excited about is most you.
Wow.
It's the closest physical representation of this core true signature self. And so follow your excitement, follow your bliss. They're blanket statements until you start understanding the physics. And you go, wait a second. Excitement is my body's physical translation of my true self. And so when I feel something that's exciting, I know that it's of this frequency. I know then I will only get more of that frequency, which can take the form of abundance, money, relationships, inspiration, resources. Whatever form is the path of least resistance, most relevant for you and for everyone else, and that happens in perfect timing. And so there's these laws, but you don't even really need to know the laws to live a really great life, because some people,
in fact, knowing them can prevent you,
yes,
because then you'll try to make them happen.
Exactly, because some people have just never unlearned this, and ever since they started as a child just going, oh, look at that toy, I'm gonna go act on it, oh, this is so fun, oh, boring, done. Right, like a baby can walk up to you, be super engaged, just be like, hi, and then you're like talking to the baby, and then all of a sudden it's just like,
nope,
it just bounces. You're like, rude baby, you know, like you didn't even say bye. It just doesn't register. It's like, not exciting, onto this. And babies are very supported naturally. If the mother's taking care of them, everyone gravitates towards that state of being. So some people haven't unlearned that. And for those people not, understanding these principles, it may not be as relevant for them if they're living a beautiful, enlightened life and they just never unlearned their natural state. Just so happens that the natural state is not the normal state.
Right.
It's the most abnormal state. So we live in a world where the most natural way of living is the most abnormal way of living.
Right.
And that's why learning these principles, it transcends belief, because once you start knowing how things work and you observe it in your life, you go, I'm no longer projecting that idea. I'm experiencing it. I'm observing that law right there. And again and again and again and again. And so now it's just in my behavior. I don't need to think about it. It's just in my behavior. And it starts with becoming aware of how things work. Right. That's why transformation, for me, I can never just focus in. And for some other people, this might be relevant. But for me, it's not. I can't just focus in on like childhood trauma. Right. And say that's all I can share.
It's got to be multidimensional and like fully stacked.
Yeah.
This is why I really resonate with you, because I feel like I'm in a similar vein.
Yeah.
I went hyper analytical and specific. Yeah. I was applying to PhDs in psychology. I was full mental, and that's when the awakening smacked me down.
Yeah.
And smacked me up to realize that niching, very specific strategy, very like nuanced, like where you're just efforting, is a surefire way to block you and help you forget. Yeah. Which usually, if you're on a path and you're surrounded by a beautiful community, you'll pop you back into remembrance. So it's a valuable journey. Yeah. But what you're saying, about the natural state and Wu Wei, I'm just dropping the Taoist codes in here. The Wu Wei is all about, can you return to the child mind or the animal mind? And this is how all the Taoist saints, they just watched a bird, like a crane, catch a fish. They watched a child play with a ball, and they're like, that's it. Yeah. Whereas as an adult, and if you're raised in the West like us, we had to go through this whole journey to unlock and re-architect that, and we're still in that process. And we get to express all these beautiful words and synchronicities and stories about how we interfaced with it. But for you, the way you interfaced with it is going to be very unique and very, rapturous once you have the aha moment that surrender is power. Synchronicity is a KPI for your Dharma. That's a key performance indicator. So you said earlier that this is a fucking fire phrase. Like, I'm gonna put this in like a rap. Like, when you go from mental constructs, you slow synchronicity. Yeah. So like, if you're not experiencing meaningful coincidence and meeting beautiful people and having experiences, and like you think of somebody, you text them, the song on the radio is telling you to open your email. Yeah. You get on a call. What's coaching? You make an offer. Like in your story, there's like so many epic, elegant like pieces of that. Right. This is a surefire way to know, oh, okay, I'm actually, for whatever reason, it's not wrong, slightly off center. And so how do you get back on center? It's one synchronicity away. I like to say it's one flow state away. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. I think there's this idea that it has to be a big leap, like, oh, I went from Wall Street and then I went and trained with the Dalai Lama, I got enlightened. It's like, okay, like some people have that extremity. Yeah. For most people, it's like, wow, today I'm going to go to that cafe and drink that tea I've been thinking about. It doesn't even really make sense to me. Yeah. Oh, I made eye contact with this woman. Oh, wow, she knows someone. And it's like, now the vortex is open again and your excitement is back online. Exactly. Now, for me, and I'm sure you can riff about this too, how many times have I felt that and then stop and the mind comes in strong and it's like, wait, but we got to get work done. Or like, I got to do a thing. And then like you come out of the alignment again for a second to remember again. Yeah.
Well, that came up actually when we were on the island for Noosa.
Yeah.
That was like a 3-day of like unplugging from everything, and it's like I'm just putting out the 13, and it's been, dude. I wish you could have just like been a fly on the wall for some of these conversations I'm having with people that are joining, because it's like, hey, how are you? Oh, really good. Yeah, I want to join. And I go, okay, great. Yeah. 5 minutes. That's a conversation, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, this is like. Not that I didn't expect that, but like, wow, okay.
You're used to there being a bit of a chase or a bit of a series.
And like every person is like, yeah, you know, I watched that video and I just know it's meant for me. Yeah, like, me too, you know? It's just been like that. And then I unplugged from that for like 3 or 4 days. I remember sitting in the room and telling Ashley, I'm like, yeah, you know, tomorrow, the whole day thing planned, like maybe I'll do a half a day and like put some creativity aside. Like I have so much to share, and I'm like, I feel like I can't, and it was just my own challenge of like then being of asking myself in that moment, where was that coming from? And it was in that moment coming from a lack of time. And what was so funny is as soon as I recognized it, it popped, because I go, a lack of time. It's like time is in the equation. Like I create time.
Right.
If I truly need more time, time will expand. And I actually had an experience of this in Bali. This is like a very deep, I don't want to say deep makes it seem like it's harder than it needs to be. It's just an understanding that a lot of people that very few people have, and it's still something that's kind of my edge, which is because I know that I create time, when I think of, do I trust the way my life's going to unfold? Do I trust the synchronicity will happen in perfect timing? Even if I think I should be doing this and I seem behind here, do I just trust it's in perfect timing right now, and can I relax into that? It's about knowing that if I fully trusted that, I would trust that I would create the time needed as well, even if the time doesn't appear to be there.
Right.
That's a multidimensional like embodiment of going, well, I only have 30 minutes left, and I have this, I need to finish this whole chapter in this book that I'm writing, because my accountability and this and that. Will I have enough time? Right? Because then maybe in that 30 minutes, you expand time where you really had 2 hours. It just was, in physical time, it was 30 minutes. And I had an experience of this in Bali, because I feel like Bali messes with time a lot.
Bali is like it's a timeless space.
Yeah. We were at a retreat, and I'm sitting there, and we complete day 2. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like getting all my ET downloads, and I'm like way off somewhere, and I just kind of bring it back down. I'm like, you guys want to like go into some like really far out, like just wild stuff? They're like, yeah. I'm like, yes. So this is how the geometry of creation started, and the first reflection of God were the archangels, and I like started at the ultimate, you know, the biggest you can get, all the way down to the human experience and the emotional scale and scale of consciousness and all this stuff. And I'm just streaming, and it's just, for me, I'm in this like very excited, relaxed state. I'm like leaning back, excited, and it just felt like a full channeling. And I come out of it and I go, oh man, we started at 9. It's probably like 11. And we have curriculum starting tomorrow at 8. You guys got to go to bed. And Nathaniel looks at me. I go, what time is it? He goes, it's 9:17. I'm like, no, it's not. It can't be. I looked at everyone. How long did that feel for you? They're like, at least hour and a half, 2 hours. He's like, it's been 17 minutes. I'll prove it to you. Here's the song we first started with. Remember, you were singing it. Here's down the playlist. There's only been 5 songs. 3 minutes each. I'm just like, wow. And so that's a perfect example of if I actually fully trust that my highest excitement and my highest passion will support me in all ways, what's contained within all time, relationships, money, inspiration, that's all contained within everything by definition. So if I need more time, I can actually create more time, or I could speed it up. And if I have that full amount of trust, well, then my life becomes more of a fairy tale, and actually fairy tales become a more accurate representation of life than a fantasy world.
Yes.
You start going, oh wait, that's actually how it's supposed to work.
Yes.
Right?
This is a beautiful like flip. So you hear time is money, right?
Right.
Time is money, and money is the root of all evil. That's a distortion equation.
Yeah.
Jose Arguelles, who's one of the students of the Mayan Dream Spell and 2012 prophecy, it talks about what happened at 2012 with the galactic center alignment, whatever mythology you want to overlay on it. We're shifting from time is money, which was like Roman Empire calendars and shit like this in the West, which we've inherited, to time is art. So time actually isn't money, because money is not even real. Money is
Right.
a scorekeeper for resources and
Right.
creates artificial scarcity, whole nother video. But time is art, where do you go to a painting and say, well, you should add in more trees over here? No, it's a fucking masterpiece. You just look at it and there's a transmission. And time is the same way, because it's not real.
Yeah.
What's real are the seasons and their cycles in nature, but calendars are a convenient way where I can be like, I'll meet you at 4 p.m. at that cafe.
Yeah.
It's a convenience, which means it's an art form, which means it's not a scarcity generator.
Yeah.
So, and this is what I love about flow states. One of the hallmarks of a flow state, which shocker, I'm in one right now, is time dilation.
Yeah.
So right now, it could have been 2 hours since we started this podcast. It could have been 33 minutes.
Yeah.
I have no idea, because this conversation is so exciting.
Yeah.
So many neurons are wiring right now that time is actually dilating. And this is, again, to go back to the Asian philosophy, Mugen Mushin, no mind. This happens, and it was written about really famously in samurai poetry. When two samurai would fight that were at a master level, there's a very real sense for them and anyone observing them that time slows down, because the movements and the life or death nature and like
that's why I got this.
Boom.
The synchronicity.
Yeah.
So this means it's Ben Do Wa, so it's a teach and follow the way, the way of the samurai. And what it is, it would teach. I read this book, Zen and the Way of the Martial Arts. You seen that book? I read that book, and there was a part in it that showed these two master samurais to like actually become in the like elite class of samurai. They would fight, and they would both be holding their swords, just staring at each other in the eye. And it would the fight would end always within 1 second, because it would be the first one to pull their sword out, and just it was all about the timing.
Right.
The person that thought themselves superior would always lose. The person that thought themselves as inferior would always lose. The person that was so present and saw themselves as fully equals would always win. And so that became the philosophy of obviously not to fear death, be in full acceptance and see this person as your equal, is the balanced state of, okay, now I can fully drop into the now, where you just have that advantage.
Right.
Or time is slower.
Right. And this is something, you don't have to be a samurai in feudal Japan. You can do this today, right now. Maybe as you're listening to this, maybe as you're going about your day, maybe as you're sipping your tea slowly, maybe you're having a conversation, a phone call that's exciting for you. You can start to tap into time as an art form and a medium to create synchronicity, miracles, and normalize, what we're talking about, this expanded state where you're actually attracting things that you want. When time is money and you're trying to attract things by, like, you're blocking that flow straight up.
And I drop a nugget about time. In the coaching community, there is such a emphasis on the idea of timeline therapy. Let me go back to what I believe is the cause of my current effect. And if my current effect is anxiety, fear, trauma, whatever it may be, if I believe the cause is outside of the now, then I'm buying into time. I'm buying into my past is still real and it has control over me. Which from that point forward, if I believe the past is controlling me now and affecting me now, I will always align my past with the future to try and plan the future to avoid this pain, which cancels out the miracle in the now, and a miracle is a shift in perception. And so I can't shift my perception if I believe in linear time in the way that this over here in my past is affecting me now. In fact, the only thing that can affect you now is what is here now. That's just the definition of now. So where is my past? Where does it exist? Well, if there's 5 principles in physics that govern, these are the 5 facts. There's 5 facts. Everything else is belief and perspective. One of those is everything is here and now. If everything is here and now, well, isn't the past one of those everythings? Yeah. So the past is now. So if the past is being created now, it's not the past that's hurting me. It's what I'm creating in the now about the past that is hurting me. It's me saying, because of what happened in the past, this must mean blank about me. This must mean I'm weak. This must mean I'm powerless. This must mean I'm unworthy. And when you attach it to the past, yes, it can be useful to meet someone where they're at in their belief system if they believe change has to be hard, if they believe it has to be
Right.
painful, well then yeah, they'll attract someone that goes, let me go into all the pain because it has to be so fucking hard. And that actually might be best for them versus fighting their belief system. So yeah, it can be helpful in that way. And people can have breakthroughs. But it's not necessary if you understand the mechanics of transformation. The mechanics of transformation are simple. Let me become aware and bring neutrality to these negative beliefs that I find about myself. And that's it. Most people are afraid to look at the negativity because they think they'll find something that's actually true. They go, oh, I'm going to actually discover that I am actually worthless, that I am not lovable, all of these ideas. This is why understanding why things work is so valuable. Nothing negative can be true about you by the definition of negative energy, because negative energy as its nature, not as a moral judgment, that's negative, that's bad,
right.
but what negativity actually is as an energy is that which separates, that which compartmentalizes, that which divides. That's all. There's no morality in that. That's just its nature, and it's what creates the trinity of positive, negative, and neutral energy. And so if you know that, then you know, well, for this negative thing that says I'm not enough, if that was true, then how do I exist? Because if I actually wasn't enough, I would be separate literally from existence, meaning I couldn't even be having this thought right now. I couldn't even be experiencing
it's a timeline
this.
paradox.
So you go, wait a second. Because I exist, that by definition means I'm included in all that is, in existence. And because I'm included, that's actually positive energy. That's actually love. And so for me to bring my awareness to the negativity, I instantly find fallacy. I find a lack of logic. And my brain can't accept something that doesn't make logical sense. And that doesn't come from effort. That comes from actually acknowledging the belief. Saying, okay, you know what? I don't believe I'm worthy. Like, I acknowledge that that's a real thing that I've been choosing. That's real and that's valid for what it is. But it's just not what I prefer. But until you equalize it to positivity, you're actually giving it more power and you can't let it go. But when you equalize it, you just look at it and you observe and you go, wait, if I actually wasn't worthy, then why do I exist? Because if I didn't exist, all that is wouldn't be all that is. It would be all that is without me. It'd be all that is without Kevin. It'd be all that is without Brandon. The whole picture would be incomplete. So understanding some of these principles and being able to observe them, there's a built-in freedom with the understanding of how reality is structured. So you go, oh, that's how that's structured. Oh, and I'm part of that. Oh, that means I'm just as free as the bees and the this and that. Mm-hmm. And oh, it just starts to, that's why I call the 13 an equation. Because for me, it's not like I compiled a philosophy. There's the certain observable ideas that describe reality that when we simply become aware of, that's not new information, but when we become aware of them, there's implied results. There's implied transmission implied in the understanding of, oh, I exist and that can't change. And so I can't die. And this is just a proven aspect of physics. Energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. Right? So you just start understanding these from an observational level, and then from there, that's why the 13, you have to start with the story of creation. And right now, the only way that you can actually understand that from our level, from my experience, is through geometry. So you have to start, for the 13 specifically, you have to start from what is the all that is that I am and that I'm a reflection of. So now that I know that, everything else kind of deduces, and it kind of goes like this, all the way down into my behavior, my choices.
Descension.
Exactly.
Descension.
To
distillation and descension of, well, when I was hearing like the geometry and creation myth, which every culture always has had, it's actually like, if you can recognize recognition of pattern is one of the simplest forms of intelligence. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you can recognize pattern as such, you actually gain this, well, it's not gaining, but there's an intelligence built into that. So the geometry is actually a really powerful tool to help you understand patterns that are pre-existing in you. And so this is why natural law and geometries and creation myths are kind of like one of the ultimate tools and maps for a human being to navigate reality. And we've dropped no less than 100 different maps and nuggets just in this broadcast. So I want to quick pivot here and go to a lightning round for you. And I love asking these questions. The invitation is just to answer quickly and like whatever feels good. And I know we already are these things, and like this is imagination too.
Okay.
Imagination.
Yeah.
Any superpower from any fiction or timeline, which one would you want?
Just Doctor Strange.
Just Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
Great answer. Any character from world mythology, what god or goddess would you be?
Thor.
Ooh, nice. Okay, so aliens land tomorrow on the White House lawn. What would be your first question?
I was going to say party. I thought you said what would you do?
Well, yeah, let's have a party.
My first question, I would just be teach me.
Teach me.
Yeah.
Okay. You get to time travel to any time period and have like a satsang with any master, living or dead.
Jesus.
Yeah.
The boy JC.
The boy JC.
Yeah.
Just quick fun fact, every time I've done this, that is the number one answer.
Is it
from
really?
Almost everyone.
Well, remember the story of the Diamond Heart of Christ? What happened right before that in Sedona? Sedona was like, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. Sedona, Bali, Hawaii. For me, those are the big three. I'm like fucking so activated at those places. And in Sedona, we were going to a crystal shop. And then we'll go back to the laser.
Classic.
We're going to a crystal shop. Yeah, classic Sedona. And I walk in, and my body's like turning before my head could. And I walk in, and I turn to the left, and I see a picture of Jesus meditating. Have you seen that picture in the white? In that moment, I froze, and I had about 30 seconds of just gazing at the picture, and everything about what I thought about Jesus was rewired in my brain, and it was emotional. I was crying. Up to that point, I still had unconscious beliefs and biases against religion that, by extension, were projected onto Jesus. And so in that moment, I see him meditating, and I go, wait, he's not in prayer? Oh, wait, I meditate. He meditates. Wait a second. There's this connect. And it just was this like a huge heart opening. And I walked over and I bought that, and I carried it with me everywhere that I would go. And I just started feeling very connected to Jesus. I remember driving home from Sedona, and in the car we're listening to music, and I look up, and in the sky, there's a perfect circular rainbow.
Whoa.
A circle, perfect circle in the sky of a rainbow, and I'm looking at it, and I cry again. Same energy that I felt through him. It was only a month later that I got into the ceremony and had the Christ heart awakening.
Right.
Which now it's like, it's not Jesus, it's the Christ archetypal energy that represents an aspect of the collective, just like Buddha nature, Krishna spirit, all those archetypes. It's just one of those that I really resonate with.
Right, one of the avatars.
Yeah. One
of the great Maha vehicles of humanity. So just two more quick lightning questions. First one, what's your alien bloodline lineage? Do you know?
Really, really connected to Essassani, Bashar, that lineage, Essassani, Pleiadian. I know I have the light side, a lot of the light side of the Anunnaki DNA, which, from my understanding, is like expressed through psychic abilities and whatnot. If we go way back into the story. Sirius, I had a moment in a gym one time where I was watching a movie called The Crossing the Threshold. It's like a documentary about the 2012 crossing, and it was talking about our correlation with Sirius. And the further we go, the more we descend, and the closer we go, the more we ascend. And I'm on a exercise, I'm like doing a chest press or something, I'm watching it, and as soon as it started talking about Sirius, uncontrollable tears in the gym. Stop.
Wow.
Right, 5 or 10 minutes. So Sirius is really strong too. Yeah.
Nice. And 10 years from now, we dream port to future Brandon.
Yeah.
What is most exciting for you in that timeline, 10 years from now?
Well, I have no idea. First answer. Second
Sure.
answer, if I were to create a picture of it now, well, I see myself doing what I'm... Oh man, that's a hard question.
Just express, like, what are you feeling, seeing, like, as soon as I said it?
Well, I see more community. I see different, like, new, I don't want to use the word new age, but kind of, I guess, new age, or like of this new generation. I see leaders of this new generation holding down different parts of the world,
Yes.
specifically with sanctuary and places of gathering in certain points of the world. And I really be doing the same thing, probably just in a different form, you know. But I see, I'm really passionate about our generation. I'm like, okay, It's about us actually looking at the dense parts of reality that us as spiritual beings don't want to look at. That means the government, like looking at, man, what's this government all about? We have so much trauma, and like, oh, they're so corrupt, so we literally avoid it. Like we actually need to engage and accept it for it to transform. So like actually having this like more of a revolution of our generation, and in 10 years I see that being like leaders of the world and in different, with a new consciousness. So that's really exciting to me.
Funk, yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow. Quick fun fact, anyone listening or watching this, bookmark or drop some UFO emojis where you felt the most lit moment in this broadcast, because there are so many at this point that I'm going to need to have like a 2-hour massage after this. So make sure you're following Brandon here. He's tagged on Facebook. He's on Instagram as well. I think you're on YouTube. He's on all the channels. And before we sign off here, do you want to share about what you're excited about offering?
Right now, so this is the first time in 2 years, only the last 2 years have I started doing retreats, and it started with my good friend Nathaniel Salas, like you saw. And over the last 2 years, we've had 14 different retreats and workshops. I only figured that out the other day when someone asked, hey, so how's your journey been? And I'm like, oh man, we've done 14. And it was a lot. It was every other month for the last 2 years. This is the first time that I've cleared my entire schedule, have no events, no retreats, nothing booked outside of the 13. And so the most exciting thing for me right now is sharing the 13. It was the first time that I said, you know what, I'm going to share this with my mom, my dad, my brothers. Like, I just felt it's for everyone. And so the 13 is really exciting. We're doing something really cool. This is just coming together. So you can see this piece that I wear. This is actually from Bashar. I had a transmission of symbols about a year ago. It's my logo. And to me, it's a description of the transformation of physical reality, or you could even say the transcendence. And so it describes the process of connecting with higher infinite self, embodying into the physical, and then expanding into the spiritual. And we're making, for the 13, jewelry out of a citrine. So imagine this but gold, and it'll have the etched logo, and it's going to be activated by this guy in San Diego as the scalar technology. He's going to tune it to gamma, which is the higher mind. And so everyone that's graduating the 13 will be part of a council of 13 that will then leave that 13 with these pendants that represent a commitment to hold at least one gathering a month, virtually or not virtually, that pertains to the 13 dimensions of transformation. And it's open for them to reimagine it, whatever it may be. So I'm really excited about, because I feel like what's happening is I'm assembling a spiritual all-star team. People that are showing up are like, they're showing up and they're like, yeah, all my life my family has been channeling for me and I couldn't explain it. And now I need this to kind of piece it together. And other people, they've all had these awakening experiences. They're all in their power. It's like, wow. So that's just been, the people that are showing up has been probably the most exciting part about it. Yes. And just discovering more about the 13. Like I revisit it almost every day, and I'm like still kind of connecting dots of like, oh, that's this and that. So that's really exciting for me. It starts on the 13th, August 13th.
No shocker there.
No chakra. And it starts on the 13th. There's 20 spots, and about half are filled. And so that's that.
All right. Funk, yes. So you can find out more about that. It's going to be in the comments here on Facebook. If you're listening to the podcast, check the show notes, iTunes, Spotify, all the good places. Make sure you're following Brandon. I can't wait to share more life with you, brother.
Same,
and like,
bro.
just like,
thank you for this. This has been awesome.
Feel like,
and you guys are not going to Kev's retreat. You got to go to Kev's retreat. I know from an insider point of view, some of the magic that he's bringing. I was gonna say. Oh, I won't say that. Yeah, well, just some.
There will be ciphers.
Yeah, there will be ciphers, but just some ways to unlock your channel and your creativity and your embodiment, really. So, y'all should go.
Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, I'm doing early bird enrollment. Closes Monday, so that's Temple of Flow, October 10th to 15th, Costa Rica. I'm gonna drop that in the comments. Discount code is golden, like golden age, because we're golden agents. We're gonna hook you up. So. Love y'all. This is the Revolution Podcast. We will see you next time. Family, if you're feeling this video, I know you are, share it out, tag your family, tag your friends, tag your aliens, and scope the 13. It's dropping soon. This has been broadcast from Bali. Peace, fam.